This is NEWSFASH, the podcast where fashion and news meet for your weekly dose of insider insights. I'm your host, fashion journalist Mosha Lundström Halbert, and together we're going to stay up to date and open to learn about fashion from a variety of perspectives. Welcome back to another weekly NEWSFASH roundup, where I will be going through the week's top fashion news headlines that I recently covered on the latest NEWSFASH video, which you can go watch after this. But we're going to be doing a deeper dive and discussing the why and the how and the where of what's happening in fashion right now. And I'm also recording this for NEWSFASH podcast. So we're going to dive in with the top story of the week, and we're going to go through these, and then please jump in and start asking your questions below. If I miss it, I will be starting from the beginning and scrolling down and getting to as many questions as I can about fashion, careers in fashion, fashion news, the business of fashion, the industry, style, personal style, shopping. Those are always fun as well. And we'll see how many we can get through. This is my new fangled concept that I just started last week and got a really great response to. So I'm so happy that so many of you liked it. So we're continuing on. But basically, this is like my version of a live call-in radio show where instead of discussing relationship woes or current events. No. We have much more important topics at hand. And that would be what is happening in the world of fashion, which in the world of politics that we've all just endured this week, I think we could all use a little break from to discuss the inner workings of another equally competitive, cutthroat, and compelling side of the news cycle. So I think this is my number one news story of the week, which is that Tom Ford, the fashion designer turned filmmaker turned real estate mogul, just totally splashed out and set a London property record for the year for residential real estate acquisition, scoring an $104 million USD mansion in London's Chelsea neighborhood. We know nothing else about it besides that. There haven't been photos or the address released of the exact residence. But of course, Chelsea is one of the most desirable neighborhoods in London. But Tom Ford recently, since the 2022 sale of his Tom Ford brand to the Estee Lauder company, which is obviously continuing the very profitable beauty arm of the business, and they also own the license for the eyewear. And then they outsource the clothing and accessory manufacturing. That part of the business is actually run by Zegna Group out of Italy, which is why the past one or two Tom Ford collections have been shown in Milan. And they, of course, have a new designer, Peter Hawkins, who started off, did one season, and then now the designer Hyder Ackerman has been ushered in. Thank you for all your questions. If you're just joining now, I am going to piece through the week's top fashion news stories, and then I will jump back and forth between your questions, go back to the fashion news stories, and recording all of this. If you missed any of it, this is going to be posted shortly thereafter wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube as my NEWSFASH weekly show. So also part of the Tom Ford real estate portfolio just goes to show you how, if you make the right maneuvers in the worlds of fashion and especially beauty these days, you can really come out on top, as Tom Ford did alongside his very savvy business partner, long time since the formation of the Gucci group, Domenico De Sole, whose daughter Ricky De Sole was a fashion editor at Vogue, who I know, and is now the fashion director of Nordstrom, but that's a story for another day. Anyways, Tom Ford's real estate portfolio, in addition to this London mansion, which if you're just joining us, he set a property record acquiring for $104 million US dollars. That's around 80 million pounds. He also owns homes in Los Angeles, a really like to run into Tom Ford here in LA or have him at the races someday, obviously more than welcome. Open invite, Mr. Ford. He also has a property in Santa Fe, where he's from. Palm Beach, which he added to last year. I think he set a property record for Palm Beach at the time too. It was last year or the year before. Shortly thereafter, the closing of the Tom Ford sale to Estee Lauder, which made him a billionaire. And he smartly put his money into real estate. And also, I think Florida was an important investment opportunity so that he could claim residency there for tax reasons, presumably. And then he purchased for over $50 million Jackie Onassis's home in the Hamptons. Okay, so taking a break before we get into the next fashion news stories, I wanted to go through some of your questions here because I noticed a few out of the corner of my eye had come in. So please, escapism I've been asking for. I hope this is escapism. That's why I thought it's fun to do this on Friday, because as we end the week, I think it's enjoyable to just look back on the week in fashion that was and kind of do a little bit of a recap because a lot happens in a week from fashion. Ken says hi from Australia. Love, what time is it there? I imagine. But love that we are reaching so many people from all around the world. Oh, this is a good question. Which brand is on life support? I was thinking about Proenza. That'd be Proenza Stuhler, not Schuler, Proenza Stuhler the other day. And I was like, what happened? Yeah, Proenza Stuhler is one of those brands that seems to every fashion month during their show in New York have a moment that really reminds everyone, oh yeah, Proenza Stuhler. Like, these are really talented designers who have been at it for a very long time. I think they're one of the original, or the original winner of the CFDA Vogue Fashion Prize, which kind of anoints new talent in the fashion industry, and also they're awarded with an endowment in order to invest in their business and in fashion shows and hopefully help to continue to keep New York Fashion Week on the map. They have had so many different owners and investors over the years, Proenza Stuhler has. And these days, I think they're more positioned as a mid-tier, almost more contemporary brand, which is an interesting segment of the market that isn't as talked about these days. I would say like 10, 15 years ago, the rise of contemporary brands like Alexander Wang, Carven, who would be another example, like Trina Turk. I'm thinking about these like mid-tier department store brands. Rag and Bone maybe would fall into that category. We're trying to scale, and I think what happened is there's just been more consumer demand for kind of like the top of the market luxury brands and the bottom of the market fast fashion brands. But I think Proenza, they definitely had some success with their handbags category, but they didn't maintain that momentum. I think their footwear these days does reasonably well, but I don't really know what they're known for. My favorite contemporary brand, and the one that I tend to shop the most that really falls into that like mid-tier, not designer price point, but not lower and definitely not fast fashion, is JW Anderson's brand, actually. I have a lot more from JW Anderson than I do Loewe because obviously the price point is a lot better. And I just think pieces are great. They're really versatile. Everything I have from JW Anderson, I always get loads of compliments on and ends up being a wardrobe staple. Speaking of contemporary brands, not that anybody asked, but that is my 2 cents. Okay. Thank you again for all these fabulous questions. This is what makes this show so fun and off the cuff. Ooh, somebody just asked, do you think Jonathan Anderson is leaving Loewe? Speaking of, might be numbered, but I wish they weren't because I think Loewe offers such like a unique artisanal approach to fashion that you don't see very broadly in the LVMH brand portfolio, which includes Louis Vuitton, Dior, Givenchy, Celine. So I hope he doesn't leave because even though it's been like 10 years, I feel like it's only been about 3 or 4 years where he's really hit his stride. When these creative directors leave and new ones start, oftentimes like they come in with a whole new logo, color story, and then the stores change. And oftentimes I find that that's what can really make a brand fall off is like the store experience is no longer consistent. I love the way they stores. I sometimes will just pop into one wherever I am just for the store experience, not as much to shop. But I just think like the curation there, the store design, each one is very unique. And the furniture and the colors, they're just a lot more like organic and warm feeling to me than a lot of the other competitors. Emmy Rodriguez Flores says, I used to be a fashion marketing intern at Glamour and Esquire. I want to break into the Euro market. Help. Do you want to stay in media? I think the European market in media is a pretty interesting place because it's quite also decentralized in that there's so many different publications to target all the different language demographics that exist in Europe. I mean, there's like a Balkans Vogue, right? There's like a Serbian and a Croatian Vogue as well. Obviously, there's like a Vogue Italy and France. And I've contributed a fair bit to Vogue Scandinavia, which is out of Stockholm, but is actually all in English to kind of cater to all the Scandinavian countries. And there's just a very high concentration of English speakers in the region, so they don't kind of break out separate Vogues for like Finland, Sweden, Denmark. They have one consolidated effort. But yeah, and like in Germany, I found it interesting that the media market isn't centralized in Berlin. It's actually in Munich. But Emmy, let me know where you are looking to break into when it comes to the European market specifically. I do feel like there's a lot of opportunities in Ireland, kind of an underserved media market, especially with all the investment there and the fact that a lot of European or global brands and tech companies will make their European headquarters in Dublin for tax incentive reasons. Trump won NEWSFASH. I don't know what that means. Would you please elaborate? The agnostic place, because I am Canadian. I live in the US and Europe. I can't vote in the US or Europe. I can only vote in Canada. So that makes my perspective on politics a little bit moot. But I do like to look at it from a more international standpoint as a citizen of the world versus a tried and true American. I'm going to delve into the next fashion news update of the week, which is earnings. Now, I'm not much into spreadsheets or mathematics as a whole, but there's something about like I feel like I would have done better in math in school if they had given me more case studies from the fashion industry, because my ability and propensity to absorb numbers when it pertains to the earnings of various fashion houses just seems endless and doesn't translate to frankly any other industries or areas of my own personal life for which they would be rather helpful. But diving in, there is a American kind of mid-tier luxury conglomerate called Capri Holdings, which is the owner of Michael Kors, Versace, ironically enough, because it's an Italian brand, and Jimmy Choo, which is a UK-based luxury footwear house, of course. And bought recently because the FTC, the Federal Trade Council, recently shot down their efforts to merge with conglomerate that Tapestry, which owns Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman. And in light of this news and also the stocks taking a tumble and just market confidence, their sales are down 16.4%. They've just announced. And interestingly enough, I live rather close to a shopping mall, and there's a Michael Kors there. And I was walking past it the other day, and I remember when like the cornerstones of the Michael Kors aesthetic world used to be things like camel as like a color and a material and a texture, cashmere, pops of gold, ivory, very Thomas Crown affair, for which Michael Kors, when he was at Cityline, because he used to be the designer at Cityline in the 2000s, famously did the costumes for Rene Russo's character in the remake of the Thomas Crown Affair, which should be on your fashion homework for the week to watch if you haven't yet. I haven't watched it in a really long time, and I think it's due for a rewatch. But if you walk past it now, you are blinded by mere shine metallics, really glossy black, chrome silver and gold. And then that like their take on the Louis Vuitton printed canvas logo. That's basically all I saw in the snapshot 5 seconds as I was walking past the store. And my main takeaway was, wow, this feels so flashy. Like, when did Michael Kors get so flashy? And I think, again, nobody asked, but my overall advice to a lot of brands that are struggling right now, be it Gucci, clearly Michael Kors, and some of these, like I would say even like Dior, their sales have softened as well, is I think they need to go back to the classics and have a bit of a palette refresh for a while and like be very chicly boring for a bit and give us all a break from like the super obvious logo mania and the high shine metallicization of fashion right now. Because I don't think it's working. I think, to my point exactly, one of the only bright spots in the market right now that came out this week was Ralph Lauren, who actually announced that, I have the figures here, Ralph Lauren, their sales are up 3 to 4%, which might sound small, but for a company of its like size and scale, that actually is a lot. And it's in the Asian market as well, and off the back of what they're anticipating to be a really strong holiday season. And then also Brunello Cucinelli, who just this week showed a new regional specific collection of cashmere abayas in Dubai. How chic does that sound? Obviously catering to the majority Muslim conservative market there and offering them a Brunello Cucinelli ified version of a traditional and religiously coded dress code. And I think that's very, very smart on their part. But I also think like what Ralph Lauren is doing that is resonating with customers is as they're being as Ralph Lauren-y as possible. They're not trying to chase trends or to follow what's happening with the industry. They're trying to like really service that customer who comes to them for a very specific reason, which is to look and feel like a very wealthy, well-to-do, preppy all-American. And I think for Ralph Lauren right now, they're seeing a lot of success off of their polo bear, which if you go into Ralph Lauren stores, especially during the holidays, you will find tons of products that feature this polo bear. And I think, and then, just like not exciting, but incredibly saleable things like driving mocks and cable knits and brown leather bags. Like everyone wants brown leather and suede bags right now. And then you go to a Michael Kors store and you're just met with like logo printed embossed mirror shine gold duffels. Like who is carrying that in the year of our Lord 2024? So announced that their quarterly earnings are down 7%, and the CEO of Bulgari, which is owned by Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, said that they think that the softening in China will recover and turn around in the next 24 months. So we will see. But I've never been to mainland China. I've only been to Hong Kong. But if I was a consumer there, the luxury products from Europe and the US are often a lot higher in Asia, which is why Asian consumers will travel and purchase things abroad, especially in countries where there is a VAT, which they can get the tax refund on. And so I think a lot of the slowdown might have to do with the fact that the Asian consumers don't want to purchase these things in Asia. They'd rather purchase them abroad and get a better price. Okay, taking more of your questions now. Thank you guys. I'm going back to about the European media market and where to jump into from that caller or commenter. They said they don't know. So I pose it to you guys. Where do you think is a thriving media market to get into in Europe if you're looking to live there? I think obviously lifestyle factors play a part as well. I'd probably go somewhere Scandinavian. That's just me. Or London. Okay. Hillary says, do we think with Trump winning that trash bag suits will come into fashion? Funnily enough, did you know that most of Trump's suits are by Brioni, which is an Italian luxury brand? I don't know by LVMH or Karen. I can't remember right now, but yeah, the man loves a red tie and big old Brioni suit to suit his physique. Is the high-low brand collaboration dead? I always feel CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund should partner with Target. Yes, I think they used to, in fact. I don't know when that stopped. Or why aren't they doing it with like J. Crew or something now? I think J. Crew has been doing a really good job with collaborations. They have a new one with Christopher John Rogers, who's an incredibly talented American designer. And it's a holiday collaboration. It makes sense because Christopher John Rogers is really known for his use of multicolored stripes and color blocking. And around the holidays, we seem to want to embrace more color. And in terms of high fashion brand collaborations being dead, I still see them happening a lot. H&M recently is re-releasing a bunch of like their greatest hits from over the years. My favorite H&M collaboration for me will always be the Lanvin one. R.I.P. Albert Elbaz. I had some pieces from that. I don't know where they are. Amazing holiday party dresses. We will see a lot of these collaborations coming out like now until the end of the year, because for a lot of fashion brands, I've said this before, but Q4, the last 3 months of the year, are when they'll make like 80% of their profits for the entire year. So anything like novelty or to incentivize consumers to spend and to gift their products is often introduced right around now. I do see a lot of collaborations happening in the shoe space too, and I don't see that going anywhere. Ooh, this is a good question. Thoughts on Paul Mezcal's cropped sweaters and that fashion style? That's interesting. I was actually speaking about this with my husband the other day because we had an incident where some of our things got shrunk in the wash. Well, his things, a cashmere sweater to be specifically, somebody put it in the wash. It wasn't cashmere. In fact, I interviewed Brunello Cucinelli once and he told me that he hand washes his own cashmere. He doesn't dry clean it. So there you go. The more you know. But that cropped style, I was trying to tell my husband, I'm actually wearing a cropped Comme des Garçons blazer right now that my mother tailored for me, made it even more cropped. And you can go see video footage of that fitting on my NEWSFASH page as well. But that whole cropped style, especially for men, is really making a comeback right now. Or I don't know if it ever like was super in fashion in the way that it is now. I guess I associate more of like that shorter torso proportion with a really high waist and in a very like Cary Grant way, kind of mid-century. But now we're seeing men pair it with more of like a low slung trouser. I saw this a lot on the men in Copenhagen, and then with like a cropped boxy top or t-shirt. A lot on my For You page recently because of the sad tragic passing of Liam Payne, like a lot of One Direction content being regurgitated, and that like early 2010s men's wear aesthetic was these like longer t-shirts. Remember like Justin Bieber used to wear that a lot too, longer t-shirts with skinny jeans. And I think as we've seen this pant silhouette change to something more low slung and baggier, we've therefore seen the top silhouette become more cropped, more abbreviated. And Paul Mezcal, and I would argue like Jacob Elordi are major menswear influencers these days. I remember when Michael Kors watches were trendy. Yes, that's a really good point. I wonder what percentage timepieces accounts for their business. And I wonder if they own that license or if it's farmed out to somebody else like eyewear often is. Oftentimes, timepieces in eyewear and beauty are not produced like in-house, nor are they owned by these big brands. They are licensed. That you also remember that Michael Kors 2012-ish era. I interviewed Michael Kors I want to say like 2009, 2010. And we were speaking about like one of my very favorite Michael Kors products of all time. I interviewed him in his office. He had 3 venti Starbucks iced teas. Each one he would put 4 Splendas in. I remember that. But does anyone else remember that he used to have this fragrance, or I think he still does, his signature fragrance, tuberose. It's quite nice. And he offered it in a stick form, but it was like a deodorant stick, but it wasn't deodorant. It was a leg slick that you were meant to apply to your shins, because he said that his favorite model of all time is Carolyn Murphy, the American model, who used to model for Tom Ford a lot too. And he's just obsessed with her shins and the way that they would catch the light. And so he created this product to give you Carolyn Murphy shins. And it really is a good product. Like, I wonder if I can find it again somewhere, because it's just like that perfect leg slick if you're going for bare legs and you want just that little bit of highlight on the shin bone. It's very pretty. And you can put it like on your shoulders and on your clavicle too. I digress, but I love to digress. I love a fashion tangent. Somebody else said, not a fan of Michael Kors. I love Michael Kors, the person. I haven't resonated with Michael Kors, the brand or the products, in a long time, but he's such a great interview. And there's some designers, I would say that Tom Ford is one of these, as well as Zach Posen, Christian Siriano. They're great on camera. They're great media personalities as well. And oftentimes their work in the media landscape via shows like Project Runway can kind of eclipse or transcend their influence in the fashion landscape. Somebody else said, Tom Ford being under Colombian influence is about to have a renaissance. What do you mean? I am perplexed, confused, intrigued. I want to know more. What is this Colombian influence? And says Naiad, I'm often in London, but no, today I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles. I do split my time between the UK from the English countryside, in fact, but I'm often in London for work and meetings and my own sanity. London these days gives me what New York used to, like 5 or 10 years ago. I lived in New York from 2017 to 2010. But these days London gives me that like city fix that I miss. Celine, the word saline. I pronounce it Celine, like Celine Dion. I don't know. Maybe that's just a remnant of like Canadians sometimes trying to say things the French way, and Celine is a French house. Like I opted. It took me a while when I was in the US to learn that the city in Missouri is not St. Louis, it's St. Louis, but the spelling is very French to me. So absorb the French pronunciations when I can. Thank you for all the compliments on my hair today, guys. As you can see, I take breaks. If you watch this with the live or join me on YouTube where this will be posted afterwards, you'll see that pick, but my just compulsion is to always have a bang comb with me and just be fixing my bangs. Haven said, yes, I was going to say Ralph Lauren does great marketing in Asia. Tell me more about that, Haven. I did notice when I was in Hong Kong and Japan that you would see a lot of regional specific ad campaigns being done from all the luxury houses where they would use Asian models as well. And so there would be like more of a representation of models of the demographic they were wishing to appeal to. So how does Ralph Lauren do that? Because they are so all American. I am intrigued. I can't remember if I saw Ralph Lauren ads in when I was in Asia. But if you think about it, there aren't that many luxury brands from the US that resonate globally the way Ralph Lauren does. There's obviously a lot of talented American designers, some of which are no longer based in the US, like Rick Owens in Paris, or Daniel Roseberry, who's the designer at Schiaparelli, rumored to be taking the top job at Chanel, which we still don't know. We're still on pins and needles waiting to hear that announcement. Apparently we might hear it in December now. That's what some of my sources have been telling me. Hillary Mark says, Ralph Lauren really values quality, which is really a huge craving right now. I also think Ralph Lauren does a very good job of diversifying their price points. Like, I think they create a lot of consumer loyalty around their entry level price points with brands like Ralph Lauren, the Polo brand, which has had a big resurgence over the past few years. Ironically, the creative director of Polo Ralph Lauren, the women's side, Michael Ryder, recently left. He's an American designer, but he had worked under Phoebe Philo at Cityline prior, and he's actually been named the creative director at Cityline. So we're going to see his first collection in like February, March at Paris Fashion Week. Alexa says Ralph Lauren will go nowhere. It's classic. Yes, and I think that is a huge part of their value proposition is terribly modern nor terribly dated. You're always going to look like good in Ralph Lauren and rich. And I think that is a way that a lot of people want to look these days. And I also think like when you look at the American political climate right now, like Ralph Lauren isn't really a Republican or a Democrat aesthetic. Like it seems to sort of cross party lines. Like everyone can agree that Ralph Lauren seems to symbolize like the best of what it is to be American and really represents the American dream, right? Ralph Lauren was born in the Bronx to immigrant parents and was born Ralph Lifshitz, and which is spelled like L-I, very successful Jewish American dream success story. And I think that lore is a lot of the reason why people continue to turn to the brand and believe in it. You should record your lives, by the way. They're my fave content of yours. Well, what do you know? That's exactly what I'm doing right now through my partners at Spotify. This is going to be up wherever you get your podcast afterwards. And so if you're asking questions, you could be part of this live show. Said Ralph Lauren's big in Asia. I used to do marketing for them, and APAC was one of the big markets. Yes, I think they really do translate abroad. Speaking of, I think it's going to be interesting. One of the platforms that Trump ran on that seemed to really resonate clearly because he won was imports and tariffs on more foreign goods and an emphasis on made in America. You'll remember during Trump's first administration, beginning in 2016, Arnault family, the owners of LVMH, and actually attended the opening, I think it was in Texas, of an LVMH factory. And there really is, or there will be under the Trump regime. I shouldn't say regime. Sorry, that was a Freudian slip. Under the Trump, thinking on the words because I'm not that great on American politics, administration. There we go. The Trump administration that in America products and more incentives for factories that want to produce them. So that could be a good thing for local American brands, although I think it is a concern for foreign and especially European luxury houses who are already seeing these sales slumps. How are they going to increase their sales in the North American market if there's increased tariffs on these foreign goods? We shall see. Says, I'm still mourning the 90s when actual models were on magazine covers, not actresses. Yes, I think I am as well. The problem is that magazine covers, it's hard enough for them to sell. I think these days, the main thing that they are hoping to do is produce a lot of earned media value through going viral on social media. That's why you'll see a lot of like digital cover stars, like even Beyonce did a digital cover of W not that long ago, just because these days, through the Nepo modelification of that side of the industry, there's really only a handful of models that are household names that have come up recently. And almost all of them are reality TV spawn, right? It's Kendall, it's Gigi, it's Bella. And then, you know, kind of two of the other top models right now that don't have that kind of lineage. It's Mona Turgard, who is, I think she's Somalian, Ethiopian, Danish, grew up in Denmark, and Vittoria Serretti, who is Italian. And it doesn't help that, I mean, it doesn't hurt that she's also dating Leonardo DiCaprio right now. They're in a great campaign together, Vittoria and Mona, with Tory Burch. But other than that, it seems like most campaigns feature or reality TV spawn. What happened to Prop Collection? I guess they got divorced and shuttered the brand. Yes, I think that was part of it. Speaking of Republican fashion affiliations, apparently, like they are they were or are probably are hardcore Newport Beach Republicans. I don't know. I think going into business with a spouse is very risky business. Ironically, my parents worked together after they got married. My dad came on. My mom was in the fashion business, had her own brand, and was based in Toronto. And my dad came on as the CFO, the financial world, and working for clothing manufacturers. So it was a good fit. But they stayed married. Knock wood. But I look back, how did you guys manage that? Because there's no way I could work with my husband. I love that we have different industries and we know a lot about each other's, but we have a bit of church and state division there, which I think is necessary. Does anyone else work with their spouse? I commend you. Hats off if you do. Never seen your lives. You're interesting so much, Valerie. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for all these compliments, everyone. It's so nice. Oh, somebody else said Melania Trump is so elegant. You know what? She is. And I was looking at a bunch of her looks the other day, and I actually thought, besides some like very inappropriate choices, like that Zara coat, "You don't really care, do you?" or something that it said on the back, her quite disciplined approach to silhouette, that like longer midi silhouette that she often does, that's like kind of mid calf but a bit longer, I think really elongates her. I mean, she's obviously a very tall woman, but I think that like I like those stretched out silhouettes that she often opts for. I thought her Ralph Lauren kind of powder blue inauguration dress was very nice. She's had definitely some standouts. She loves really good quality accessories like her Hermes Birkin bags. I don't know. I think the Hermes Birkin bag, though, like rich bitch with the Hermes Birkin, is a bit of a cliche. I know that I think are the most stylish. Like, eschew that. There's something about, okay, this is a very controversial theory, but I'm going to say it. I find that there is a direct correlation between women that carry Hermes bags, particularly the Birkin and to some extent the Kelly. And if you follow that line, it connects to a very unattractive male partner spouse. And it's almost like the bag is like a concession prize for having to, sleep with the devil or somebody who's just like very physically unattractive, So it's like you don't have a very partner perhaps, but you get a beautiful bag or bags. And that's sort of the trade-off. The other thing that I've noticed about people that carry or collect these Hermes bags is the outfits with which they choose to dress themselves in on the daily. It doesn't seem like there's been a really strong cultivation of personal style there. They're really letting the bag do the heavy lifting and just seem to subscribe to this theory that like the bag makes the outfit. And I disagree. I think the bag is actually the least important and interesting part of your outfit. I think the pieces that actually go on your person and on your body that help create your silhouette and shoes are way far and beyond more important than the bag you carry. But just so you know, the bag that I have by my side right now is a really old 1996 Chanel. I think it's called like the supermodel bag or something, that I got at Rebag, and is my really good work bag that allows me to not be so precious with it because it's already been through the bend. But I think it came from Japan, and we know the Japanese are very good at maintaining luxury products in the utmost pristine condition, which is why if you go to Japan to shop the resale market, you find such good quality things for really good prices. Through here, maybe you answered this, but are your lives every Friday? Yes. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to the Friday show of NEWSFASH, where We like to end the week on a stylish and on a high note, take all your questions and give you a recap of the week in fashion news. So whether you have a dinner party, a Shabbat dinner, significant others, or your whoever, or seeing your friends, you have something to talk about and can feel more informed about the week in fashion that was. Luani says, do you think it's realistic for made in the USA apparel manufacturing to make a comeback? And keep up with these fantastic questions because I really do appreciate them. That's what makes these lives so much fun. I do. I think there's opportunities in the footwear space where there's been manufacturing hubs in the US that I think could be revived, such as in New England. New Balance has some as well in that region. In Maine, like LL Bean, obviously like border towns as well. There's a lot of amazing like Western boots, which have a Mexican influence as well. And I'd love to see that continue and be strengthened because so many of our footwear is imported. And I think that's sad when more of it could be made in the US. And I also think like for basics, there's a real appetite like denim and t-shirts for made in the US. And I do think that people, I mean, if you look at the success of the row, I do think that if it's really well made staple items that have this prestige factor, people are willing to pay. The row should do a capsule of all made in the USA. You know, like why are we ascribing to and equating luxury only with like Italy and to some extent France? We know, and I've spoke about this on the last episode, and go watch the Brandy Melville documentary for more of a case study on this, that the region of Prato in Italy is basically like Italian sweatshop central, and the worker conditions and the quality are not high at all, even though it is Italy. So, you know, just because it says made in Italy doesn't mean that it's impeccably made. Lack ever find a new brand home? Oh, that's a name I haven't heard in a while because they had a brand called C's Marjan, and this person said C's Marjan rose so quickly and then died. Yes, C's Marjan was backed by a very wealthy New York lady whose name escapes me, and I think the ROI wasn't there. It's really hard to make money in the fashion industry off apparel. Oftentimes the way that these brands make money, and the row is another example of this, is expanding into leather goods, handbags, accessories, footwear, doing collabs, and then also beauty. I could see the row getting into beauty, and I could also see and didn't diversify their offering enough and was kind of like an American Dries Van Noten. Had some really beautiful pieces too. I also went to a few of those shows, and super talented designer. I don't know, maybe he's gone back to Europe. I think he might have been from Belgium and joined one of those houses. Oftentimes that's what will happen if there's like a splashy creative director that sort of makes an impact and then goes away, and you're like, where did they go? Like Peter Hawking, he was the creative director and then he was let go, and then he ended up like running the couture maison for Balenciaga for many years, and then now he's the new creative director of Lanvin. We're going to see his first collection in February or March in Paris. Shka said about Melania, but she's rotten from the inside. Yep, there's a lot of rotten people that are very well dressed, and there's a lot of amazing people that don't have a stylish bone in their body. And you can, you know, this is all interchangeable. The way somebody presents on the outside is obviously not reflective of how they are on the inside. I've learned time and time again. It's one of my favorite lessons to learn. You can't judge a book by its cover. You really can't. And I love it when people defy my expectations of them, because we are human beings and we do use our primitive senses in order to make assessments of people's and judge people and their character in order to decide if, you know, what they're all about. Are they a risk to us? Like, that's a very primitive instinct, right? And I definitely found myself guilty of, you know, seeing a woman in dressed in a very flashy, trashy, tacky way, and maybe making an assessment about her intelligence level, and then being proven so wrong. love that. I love when that happens. I love when there's just a bit of a disconnect or an incongruence between the way someone looks and what they actually have to offer and what's going on upstairs. Agreeing with my Hermes take. Sorry for those of you that I might have offended. Status quo. I think Hermes, there's some beautiful things that they make, and the bags that I like best are the ones that you wouldn't even recognize to be Hermes. Like the bolide is really beautiful. Look that up. That's like kind of a top handle style. Okay. So somebody else said they're adding this to their calendar. Yes, every Friday, join us. Your thoughts about the new bag collection? Well, I wasn't one of the content creators that was gifted Coach bags, as a lot seem to be. I haven't carried a Coach bag in a really long time. I think I had a pochette way back in the day when I was like a teenager, and that was an item that I was coveting. I think they're doing a really great job with that. What is it called? Brooklyn bag. That kind of suede hobo. We got to stop calling these bags hobos, right? It's really inappropriate. It's like the gladiator sandal. Like gladiators were essentially slaves. It's probably inappropriate for us to refer to shoes as that style as well. I don't know. Language, semantics, right? They often need a rethinking. But I think Stuart Beavers has done a great job. I liked the bags from the last collection. The clothes were just so forgettable, but those massive clutches I thought were quite clever and fun. My Friday date now says MJO506. It's a date. Thoughts on Kamala Harris's pantsuit variations? Yes, my favorite ones were the ones by Chloe. Her stylist, Leslie Bremer, is Canadian and super talented. And I also really liked the pussy bow. Again, another fashion term that we might want to reconsider. When I think of it, it reminds me both of Saint Laurent and Margaret Thatcher. She used to wear that style a lot. But I do think it softens and is a nice way to add like a feminine elan to the more like utilitarian and masculine pantsuit. But I have to say, of all the politicians that have come into my purview of like the past 5 or 10 years, I would say, who wore a pantsuit better than Kamala Harris? Like, it really suits her. I think it suits her body type. I think it suits her strut. I think it suits her overall like badass prosecutor essence. I think she wore it very well. I don't think she put a foot wrong when it came to her wardrobe and fashion choices in this campaign, and her team did a very good job on that front. I love a good pantsuit. And it's also comfortable when it's done right. Hers looked comfortable and not like they were ever wearing her, but there's always little elements of interest. Footwear, New Balance, LL Bean, Western boots, high quality basics, denim basics, the Row, USA capsule. Oh, are you just, sorry, I was making notes and I hit send by accident. Oh my gosh. A fashion student in our midst. I love the idea of somebody taking notes from this weekly NEWSFASH, and that hopefully it's somewhat helpful. Any thoughts on LVMH taking a stake in our legacy, says Lonerism. Well, thank you so much, Lonerism, who also said, could prices / proliferation rise like saline? That was my next fashion news story that I wanted to get to, which I think is very interesting that a mere few weeks after LVMH offloaded their stake in Off-White on Virgil Abloh's birthday, the founder, no less, RIP Virgil, they took a stake in Our Legacy, which is a Swedish wear label, vaguely streetwear adjacent contemporary house. I think a lot of the brands that we're seeing come up in that space that I was addressing earlier in our conversation and in this episode that exist in that like mid-tier contemporary price point part of the market, but that are actually producing like interesting work that feels standalone and not derivative of things that are happening in other facets of the industry, are coming out of Scandinavia. I certainly saw a lot of them when I was at Copenhagen Fashion Week. I don't think that LVMH plans on raising prices. I think part of the reason why they were interested in our legacy was to diversify their portfolio and have brands that are touching different parts of the market. And perhaps our legacy is filling that void as a hotter streetwear brand that was left by the sale of Off-White. It's basically just going to license the bejesus out of it, and I give it like a couple years and it'll be all over TJ Maxx, which is kind of sad for Virgil's legacy. But and somebody said he should go to Dries. Yeah, he started at Dries, so that would be, maybe he's already there. Who knows? Because Dries is handled by a team now. Whose closet would you like to raid? Mine is Jenna Lyons. Oh, I would love to raid the closet of Giovanna Battaglia, the Italian fashion stylist who's now the creative director of Swarovski. And I've had the pleasure of meeting her several times. She is lovely and always just looks so amazing. And she's one of those people that every time I've seen her, both in real life from afar, like at a fashion show across the way or at fashion weeks or at a dinner party or at some kind of coming and going, I've always left deeply inspired by what she was wearing and the combination and how she put it together. She really is like a modern day Audrey Hepburn. She has some similar features as well. And just like this Holly Golightly irreverence to the way that she'll wear very high fashion designer pieces with more casual things like Levi's jeans with Chanel. But she always just looks so refined. And I also love a lot of jewelry, and as does she, with like simpler hair and makeup, as does she. So we don't look anything alike. And I don't know that we dress necessarily alike, but I think what she does and what she reminds me and why I would want to raid her closet is because she always maintains a sense of glamour. And when I had Alison Bornstein on my podcast, which you can go back and listen to that episode, and we worked on my 3 words, and there's a clip on NEWSFASH where we did that exercise because she has that 3-word method, kept coming back to glamorous as one of my 3 words. It's just very inherent to who I am and who I want to be. I just always want there to be like an element of glamour to what I'm wearing, even if I'm in my workout clothes, which is why my like other closet that I would love to raid is Princess Diana. And I loved her approach to athleisure, like the designer bag with the big sweatshirt and then the scrunchy socks. It's all just so. Now, somebody said their suggestion for what we should call gladiator sandals in the year 2024 is Maximus sandals. Ooh, I like that. Famous gladiator that deserves international attention. Lagos Fashion Week coming out of Nigeria, which is arguably the fashion capital of the African continent. I would also say São Paulo Fashion Week, which I've attended a few times, has some great regional designers too, and obviously fantastic swimwear. So I would rate those 2. Tokyo Fashion Week doesn't get a lot of international press, but there's so much talent that comes out of that market. So I would look at those. I would definitely look at those. Her pants are so well tailored. Are you referring to Giovanna Battaglia or are you referring to Melania? Whoever you're referring to, having well tailored pants is definitely so with being a woman of style. I think oftentimes we forget that we can do things, women, like the men do, which is have things made just for us or buy things in a size that is a bit big and have them custom tailored to fit us perfectly. Speaking of size and stature, Luani says, as a woman of short stature, I was beyond excited for her presidential fashion. I don't know who you're referring to. Melania is definitely not short. I always thought Kamala was tall. Maybe I'm wrong. Question: what is a stylish bag for a new mother? That is a good question. New mothers want bags that have some size to them so they can stuff them with all manner of baby paraphernalia and essentials. Real. And they have some really good old squishy, like Prada bags on there that are leather, but almost a duffel style that I think would be really nice. And you could just like beat up and not have to worry about if things got spilled on them. You could just wipe them down. Especially Prada's like nylon bags, I think could be really good too. I think I wouldn't do like that big, for lack of a better word, hobo slouchy style, because I feel like a lot would get lost in there. And I think for a bag for a new mom, you probably want something a bit with like compartments, but a bit on the softer side. Bottega does some other options, like their parachute bag, I think it's called, could be a good option for a mom bag. On the more affordable front, I would probably, where would I turn to on the more affordable front? I tend to go for more investment bags, if I'm completely honest. Probably, oh no. There's a bag on the tip of my tongue. Like Lundström makes some really nice nylon bags too. I would check that out. But oftentimes, like where I look for bags and for bag info is Rebag and the Real, and I get something designer, but secondhand. My mistake in Our Legacy made me sad. Why? They probably needed that investment in order to scale. I don't think it's a majority investment. Glasses brand, please. I get this question every day, every video, every live. They're YSL. The YSL, Micah. I don't gatekeep. They look good on absolutely everyone. I don't get a cut. Go get them. Find them online. There's tons of websites that sell them for various price points. Don't spend more than $300 on these, though. You can find them for way less. And then I take mine to my local optometrist, which is a Japanese optometrist called Jin's. And then I get the yellow tint put in with my prescription. If I could go back in time, not only would I be her size, but I'd raid it. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I know that's not politically correct to say, but yeah, she had an amazing figure and an amazing closet and amazing taste. Just a great beauty and great relationships with designers. Also Ralph Lauren. She also wore a lot of Lacoste in her downtime. Loved Lacoste, loved the Keds. So that's a great way to channel the Audrey look or less. Who do you think they'll eventually replace Anna Wintour with? A new column coming out for Vogue, so I plead the fifth. You like that is a bit underrated. I don't know if this is underrated, but Jacques Marie Mage is the brand my husband wears. They're pretty hyped, but they're distributed in low quantities and they're very kind of, if you know, very high quality, very expensive investment glasses, but extremely beautiful. I really like them. I just ordered a new pair of Pradas the other day. I wouldn't say those are underrated though. It is trying on glasses in stores and then finding them online for a better price. The prices of glasses these days in store apps is absolutely ridiculous. I also love like finding glasses in the duty free way to save a few pounds or dollars or yen or whatever currency you're shopping in. Kenzie says, how do you recommend easing into fashion in terms of learning about it? Kenzie, I recommend you follow NEWSFASH, you interact with all my videos, and you save them, you share them so that the algorithm will know to keep showing them to you. And then I also recommend Women's Wear Daily is another great resource, I have to say. And I would say listening to NEWSFASH, the podcast too, should be very helpful to you. And then reading the New York Times and reading Vogue.com could also help. Okay. Will lab-grown diamonds, where did that question go? Will lab-grown diamonds, will lab-grown diamonds become mainstream since Pandora lab-grown diamonds has started? I think lab-grown diamonds are already mainstream. I love a lab-grown diamond. I don't own any myself. Stigma around that. I just think your jewelry needs to tell a story, and I just wish most people. I was at a dinner this week with a lot of Republicans last week, and they were all men and women wearing stacks of Cartier love bracelets with diamonds on them. I would never. I love Cartier. This is a Cartier watch that was a family heirloom. I would never wear those love bracelets. I don't like any jewelry that is mass produced, or doesn't have like a unique story and is tied to me. And so that would be just my 2 cents when it comes to lab grown, is like, what a great opportunity to work with a independent jeweler to create a custom piece just for you, that maybe you don't have to be as precious with. Like, I wear all my jewelry every day. And one of my favorite pieces is this very old, kind of big diamond ring that was my mother-in-law's wedding ring, and it has a hole in it. So it's a flawed diamond, and I love that. So even if you aren't getting lab diamonds, like, also get flawed diamonds, or get pieces that have some character and some story to them that then become like your talisman and help tell your story, as opposed to, like, I don't know, flawless, seeking perfection. I think the more this is another take. The more women, and oftentimes men, are obsessed with like clarity and flawless diamonds and all that stuff for engagement rings, I think there's a direct correlation in like those marriages like crashing and burning and going up in flames. I think treating matrimonial jewelry with a grain of salt and having some fun with it, and not using it to oftentimes more of a blissful union. I think it's all about your priorities, and jewelry should be a lovely part of celebrating and commemorating things. But I think sometimes it becomes really for other people's interests, and for men it can sometimes be like a bit of a sign of like their own worth, or a take a picture contest. And for women, it's like signaling to their girlfriends and to other people like their value. I don't know. It's just the whole thing. I don't like it. I don't like it. When I first got married, I didn't even want a diamond. I just had this one band, this one here that my husband like insisted on, just like a simple band, because he wanted me to have something with diamond on it, but I just didn't want something flashy. But as the years have gone on, I have added to my stack, but they're all family pieces that tell a story. Anyways, tangent. But it's Friday. By the time Friday rolls around, I am just willing to let her rip. It would appear. Oh, somebody said Kamala Harris is 5'4". I didn't know. I would have guessed 5'8" or 9 or 10. First time mom, always used a regular bag, never used a diaper bag. Yeah, I love that. Just get a regular big old bag. Like, what is, I would have no idea where to direct someone to find a diaper bag. There's varying reports that Kamala's height says 5'4", but San Francisco's newspaper cites her as 5'2". Wow. She really has taller lady energy to me than that. Do you ever work for WGSN? No, never say never. WGSN is a very successful, interesting trend forecasting service. Ooh, Maikita is underrated for eyewear, says Kimmy. You're right. That's a German, very high quality eyewear brand. I had a pair from them before. I love their hinges too, which are kind of on a different spring setting. Is John Galliano retiring? I hope not. Hi, if you're still here, I'm so happy that you're here. It's so nice to see familiar faces. How are you feeling about the incoming wave of anti-intellectualism and how it'll affect fashion? I'm going to continue to exist in a budget. I don't exist in a budget. I'm going to continue to exist in a bubble where we intellectualize everything, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. 3 is a mix of custom-made and heirloom pieces, some of which I got from antique shops. Same. Love that approach. Speaking of Cartier, says Lonerism, I see the vintage Art Deco everywhere. Is there an alternative you prefer? I love vintage Art Deco. Love that era. Reporter Goddess is Jeannie Becker since I'm a Canadian gal. Same. Known Jeannie since basically birth. She is amazing. Fashion will affect fashion, especially in editorials. Affect fashion editorials. Always very interesting to see how the mainstream media attempts to cover what Melania is wearing. And I think she might have gone a bit more conservative for the first term, and maybe she'll just let her rip now and really go lean into like that whole model va-va-voom quality that she has. And why not? We just have 4 years, right? For 4 years, why not? I'm going to give you some time to dive in with a few more questions before we wrap this up. But I wanted to end with 3 or 4 more fashion news stories. So quickly, Shein's, the fast fashion Singaporean and Chinese founded brand, European division, their sales are up 68%. I thought that was interesting in light of how so many of these European luxury houses are reporting sales declines. But these Europeans we think of as so chic and, discerning and less is more, they're all buying a ton of Shein, it would seem. I did hear of hey, who went to Taylor Swift concerts this summer, like their kids did, and they were buying outfits from Shein in order to wear to the Eras tour. But I also think that I've obviously never purchased anything from Shein, but and Temu are brands that, the direct consumer approach, although I did see a Shein store in Tokyo when I was there, I believe, allows them to have those just super cheap under $10 price points for a lot of their products. And really, in today's day and age, any item of clothing really does need to cost more than $10. So if you think about the volumes they must be doing to hit those margins, it's pretty insane. I did an earlier video this week about Vuori because I was in Del Mar, California, which is a stone's throw from Vuori, which is an athleisure brand's headquarters in Encinitas, California. And everywhere I looked, everyone, man, women, not children, but men and women of a bit older than me, like an elder millennial up, were all wearing this Vuori uniform, kind of occultishly, which is that jogger pant that's tapered at the ankle, and then some kind of zip up, and then a crossbody bag, usually accompanied by a fluffy dog and some kind of claw clip if you're a woman. I saw this outfit a ton when I've been flying recently too. And I kind of poo-pooed it because I said that I described those specific pants, which really are a bestseller for Vuori, as the satanic limbo between joggers and leggings. And I stand by that remark. And then the whole thing is often paired with on-running sneakers, the Swiss sneaker du jour, which I actually find quite chuggy, to use a very 2021 TikTok word, meaning just kind of basic. But I don't know why, for the wealth signaling fashion unforward set, On Running has really become the de facto brand. Hoka to some extent also New Balance for this kind of bougie sneaker du jour. But it came out this week that Vuori, no wonder I was seeing so much of it right by their headquarters and kind of ground zero, is now valued at $5.5 billion. My parents wear Vuori. They really like some of the pieces. It's kind of an alternative to Lululemon. Certainly it's a similar demographic and price point. It was only founded in 2015. So I might have been laughing at the ubiquity of this outfit, which I still do not approve of. Fine for dog walks to the airport, because here's my hot take number 3, or is this 4 of the episode? When you are traveling, you are literally, and I want you to think of this, representing your country. You have your passport. It couldn't be clearer. You are showing officials at various checkpoints who you are and where you come from and what you stand for via what you wear. And in the spirit of doing your country proud, wherever you come from, I want you to view this a little bit more like your opening ceremonies and dress accordingly, please. And also, God forbid this is your last moment with us on earth, if anything could happen. What do you want to go down in? Vuori joggers? Lululemons? I don't think so. Dress the part. Turn a look. Does not mean you need to wear something uncomfortable or suffocating or, in any way dressy. You can still dress casually, but elegantly. And for God's sakes, Show some personality. Dressing like a lemming when going through the airport just makes me so depressed. I have a video you can go watch where I show like my approach to travel dressing and one of my recent favorite airport outfit formulas. And also, I don't care if you're sitting in economy, premium economy, business, first class, look like you belong in business and first class. And I'm telling you, you will end up there sometimes, even if that wasn't your ticket. You remember, you have to dress for the class that you want to be in, not the class that you are in always necessarily. Okay, and then one other news item is that Silvia Venturini Fendi, whose grandmother started Fendi, and who oversees Fendi menswear. Well, it was recently announced that Kim Jones has left Fendi, back to Dior Men's, so LVMH is keeping him within the fold. But she apparently is been given the reins to design a co-ed Fendi collection, WWD broke, which will be showing in February during Fashion Week. So I think that's pretty exciting and a cool idea. And a lot of the brands, if you think about it, from Bottega to Prada, will show like men's and women's looks oftentimes together on the runway. They'll have designated men's and women's collections, but most of the time, like Prada, Bottega Veneta, they are showing men's looks on the women's runway and vice versa. And frankly, like that feels modern to me. And I think it's a way that you're able to capture a bigger audience. The women's wear collections always do garner more views, more media impressions, and more audience, and account for bigger percentages of sales than menswear across the board for all of these houses that do menswear and women's wear. I'm trying to think if there's any exceptions. Maybe Hugo Boss probably has a bigger menswear department, but even like Brunello Cucinelli, which is so much more associated with menswear than women's wear, has a bigger percentage of their sales derived from women's wear these days. Before we wrap, because I have yapped it up, the coffee is nearly done, as should the chat soon. Acne Studios blazer and Loewe handbag to walk my daughter. If I get a dog, the same. I like your style. Sabato De Sarno of Gucci gonna be around before he's sacked. I give it a year and Pier Paolo gets it. That would be really ironic because Sabato worked under Pier Paolo at Valentino for years. Ian is made in the same factories as other luxury brands, just an FYI, only materials differ. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think their supply chain is different, as is their price point. I think maybe they're made in the same factories as some other lower price brands, but not luxury brands. Amy said, in your opinion, do you think Vuori is seen as better than Lululemon? No, I don't think it's seen as better, but I think in the same way that On is not necessarily better than like their competitors, Adidas or Nike or New Balance or Asics or Asics, which is my go-to favorite sneaker brand. I think Vuori is seen as having a bit of this like Californian bougie appeal and having like a point of differentiation in terms of, I don't associate them so much with like athletic apparel, but I think they've fleshed out their athleisure offering. And it's funny, if you go to Lululemon these days, they are really trying to do the same. They've even gone so far as to having these like suede tracksuits and also pleated elasticized waist skirts, almost like work casual wear. So I think Vuori might have a bit more of a diversified like assortment. I don't think they're seen as better. I think they're seen as an alternative. And Lululemon is quite ubiquitous. So I think for a certain sector, like, well, I'm not like the other girls. I'm not in Lululemon. I'm in Vuori. If you know, you know. But the ubiquity is ubiquiting. That's not a word, but go with it. It's Friday up, and I look at these last questions. Which one should we take here? Changing my airport outfit approach now. Thank you so much, Cherise. Let's make this world a better place, one airport outfit at a time. They start whenever I'm good and ready on a Friday. Around the like 2:30 hour. Lundström says, here on the East Coast, we have the plague of Patagonia normcore types. Anytime it dips below 65, they come out whenever it gets a little bit chilly, don't they? Equity. I think we should all look this week, and I want you to report back and let me know next week if you are noticing, as the weather's starting to get a lot colder and we're in, the throes of mid-November. Even here in LA, it's getting chillier, especially in the mornings and at night. Barn jackets are everywhere. Please let me know. Report back. Are you seeing barn jackets? Variations and riffs on classic Barbers and Burberrys, quilted, oftentimes with like the contrast collar. I lived in mine this summer in the UK. Are you noticing this trend? We've seen everywhere from like The Row to Ganni to Zara in your area. Please report back and let me know if this heritage outerwear staple is becoming the trend that I see it to be on TikTok. Because sometimes TikTok can make things seem like they're bigger in the real world than they actually are. And you never know. Okay, there's a whole debate in the comments going off about if Shein is produced in any luxury factories. I'm going to look into this more and come back to you with like some more conclusive reporting. I really don't think so, but you never know. I mean, that report did come out that Dior bags, they found some Dior bags and Armani bags, I think too, were being made in like the Italian equivalent of sweatshops and were only costing a piece to make. And of course they were charging thousands. So without further ado, I am talked out right now, but I thank all of you for joining, if it was even for a few minutes, this NEWSFASH live special. If you missed anything or if you wanted to see if your question was answered, you can re-listen to this wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. But without further ado, that wraps your NEWSFASH. I'm Mosha Lundström Halbert. Stick with me here and over on TikTok to stay up to date on all things fashion. If you have any questions or guest suggestions or feedback, please drop us a line at mosha@newsfashmedia.com.